You know, I'm just sickened with Disney lately. They are just pandering to the wrong demographics. They make Heimdall and Valkyrie black, even diversifying Star Wars, making most of their generals women. Oh no, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with people who have a problem with that. Because Disney, in some pathetic, disgusting attempt at pacifying these angry white guys, gives us a new character in this movie just so they can feel represented again? And they don't even give him a name. He's just the Wasp. You know, in my defense, there are a lot of wasps in the MCU. You know, I like that word, a lot. Wait, that's two words. You know, I like that term, a lot, and if you couldn't tell by the ridiculous movie collection behind me or my Orson Wellesian physique, it's the way I like to live. So let's make a lot the key term to this review, because you know what? I have a feeling it'll come up several times. Marvel has a lot of everything. Stars in their pocket, 35 television shows and feature films, mostly money, and tons of characters. And here's where we're going to start, because here we are deep into phase 3 and we have seen a lot of characters. Dozens, if not hundreds, of featured characters within these films. I mean, even Bruce Banner lost track. There's a Spider-Man and an Ant-Man. Yes, Bruce, there are even a ton of MCU-based characters on arachnids and insects, and you know what? That includes our first female heroine in the title of an MCU film, the Wasp. Somebody who, it's great that she's there, but I'm just really not excited. You know why I'm not excited? Well, it doesn't matter because I can't really hear your response and I'm going to tell you anyways. Phase 3 has had some commonalities, some polarizing commonalities, and that's because within Phase 3 the films have either blown the MCU wide open or played it safe. Civil War and Infinity War, oh, both war movies. Captain America's Civil War and Infinity War tore down the MCU and made the universe something new. Doctor Strange blew our tiny little minds, as did essential newcomers Spider-Man and Black Panther. Which really just leaves Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and Thor Ragnarok, which if you saw my reviews of that movie, you know, in my opinion, that doesn't make it the best company. Now, before you go and comment saying something you wouldn't say in public, hidden by the anonymity of the internet, let me explain. The best way to put it is these films are episodic. They play it safe. They have no real consequences. Okay, I have a lot to say about these movies. The best way to put it is all of that. Basically, if you were to miss some of these films, it wouldn't really matter within the timeline of the MCU. You could just skip them. And the MCU at this point has done really well to make all of their films matter. Almost like you have to see every single film, which is why there's such a dynasty. But Ant-Man and the Wasp is really something you can skip. It doesn't really matter. Let's just say if it were Ant-Man who told Tony, I don't feel so good, people wouldn't have freaked out the way they did. Part of this has to do with what I was saying about a lot. Yes, there are a lot of Marvel characters, and they're all fun, but they're not all irreplaceable. Hell, even within the context of the film universe, these aren't the first two characters to be called Ant-Man and the Wasp. And even if it was the classic Hank Pym and the classic Janet Van Dyne, I'm not quite sure if I would love the film. I like the characters. They're an important part because they're iconic and part of the original Avengers, but at the heart of it, they're really just characters who can grow large or shrink. And don't get me wrong, the action sequences were a lot of fun. But how else can you make an Ant-Man and Wasp movie big? Well, one way that they actually made it work was family. Both Scott's family and Hope's family played a big part in the film. And you know what? Young Abby Ryder Forster, who played Cassie, was really good in this movie, an important part, because she was pretty adorable. And Michelle Pfeiffer is the original Wasp. Amazing. But Marvel, you can't tease. At this point, Vulture and Janet need to have a scene together in a future film because the 12-year-old me would freak out. But the other ways to fill out this film, in my opinion, didn't really work. And you know what? There were so many subplots within this film that I can't even really mention them all. It really felt like the writers and the director, Peyton Reed, were just trying to jam it in because they knew that the two main characters can't really stand on their own. But ironically enough, having a lot of stuff stuffed into the movie actually kind of helped it. One of my biggest complaints about the original Ant-Man was Luis, played by Michael Pena, and his fellow ex-cons, the buddies of Ant-Man. And you know what? In the first one, I didn't find them funny. I found them unnecessary and annoying. But there's another key word that gang was, and that is silly. Something I have brought up in a lot of my other reviews. Phase 3 is just unnecessarily silly a lot of the times. Now, it has its place. It's fun. It's stupid, brainless fun. And you know what? It's also a counterpoint to films like Infinity War. It has to lighten things up. But you know what? I've already done a whole video about how I've had enough of silly, so let's move on. No, let's not move on. I want there to be consequences. I want things to matter. I desperately wanted Walton Goggins to matter because in his two most recent villainous roles, in Tomb Raider and now this, he's had some very generic paychecks. I mean, character roles. Ironically, he didn't even take the prize for greatest generic villain within Ant-Man because the well of Ant-Man and Wasp nemesis is as shallow as the Ford gene pool. Okay, that was a Canadian politics joke. I didn't want to go with the Trumps, okay? I talk about them a lot. Okay, enough about real life villains. Let's talk about the fictional one. They took Ghost, a typically Iron Man villain, gender swapped the character and gave her the best backstory they could, but it still wasn't enough. And considering I didn't know anything about Ghost because I didn't read Iron Man, I think it's a good idea that they made her her. But really the only thing Marvel proved by gender swapping the character was that women can play generic villains too. Didn't Cate Blanchett already do that in Ragnarok? No, you know, it doesn't really matter, but what matters is that we talk about how this is another thing within Phase 3 that shows how polarizing it could be. They're villains. They were on a tremendous streak. You had Vulture, you had Killmonger, you had Thanos, fantastic, well-balanced villains that were actually menacing on the screen, and once in a while you would say, yeah, they're kind of right. But Ghost fits in with Malekith, Caecilius, and worst of all, not Phase 3, but still worst of all, Yellow Jacket from the first Ant-Man movie. Yeah, it made me ask, are you for real? Which is too bad, because in an otherwise predictable twist, she had a relationship with Bill Foster, played by Lawrence Fishburne, and you know what? It was actually the best part about her character. It was a surrogate father-daughter relationship. It gave her some sympathy. It certainly gave him a lot to play with. And it actually changed things up, not only for a generic villain, but in a film that I found to be, most of the time, one note. Too bad we couldn't see him in action as Goliath. We could have finally proven the age-old debate, what's bigger? His stature as Goliath or his confidence? Because dude cuts a hole in the middle of his uniform. Like, you gotta be ripped. Really, it comes down to how much I trust the Marvel brand. You can call me a fanboy, but the fact is, even when I've left the theater after a film like Ant-Man and the Wasp, which I don't consider to be their best film, I've never felt ripped off. It isn't their strongest film. Phase 3 is not their strongest phase, but you know what? It is still an earn it. Barely. You could skip it, but it's still innocent, stupid fun, and it might be worth it. Poll question, who is your favorite obscure comic book character who you would like to see get their own movie? As always, leave your answers in the comments section below. But until next time, school's out. Hey Real students, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe to Real School, click that round Real School logo right beside me. Also click that damn notification bell so you're aware of all of Real School's new content. You can follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link in the description below or the button down there, and you can become part of my Patreon team.